How are we spelling it?
How do you spell it?
B-U-R-L-E-Y or B-E-R-L-E-Y? Hello everyone, welcome to The Deep Drop, a fishing podcast with me, Luke McCredden, and Adam Rings on the other microphone. And Ads, how do we explain this one? We are asking questions and answering them, or are we not doing either of those?
Yeah, no, we're probably talking more shit than we're actually answering any questions. But where it sort of stems from is how many times you've been sitting there catching nothing and you just start asking each other stupid questions on why things aren't happening. Well, we're going to answer those questions.
So many of those questions. I love it. Let's get straight into it, Ads. Let's not muck around.
Why don't we use live baits for snapper more?
I love this question because I think it is one of the biggest missed opportunities for our fishery. And snapper is by far the biggest species and most popular species we've got. Whiting are probably 1A, but snapper just kickstarts the whole fishing season for us.
Yeah.
And every single time the season rolls around, we're all working out how to get them, where are they, what are they biting, what tide. Live baits could make every single one of those questions obsolete to a certain extent. There's a few reasons why I think we don't use them, and I think the biggest one's probably timing. We love to get up at 3 a.m. and drive to the most popular boat ramp ever and line up for 2.5 days before we actually get to launch a boat and fish for a snapper. And that's probably why the live baiting thing doesn't get probably utilized as much, because you want to have sounded, anchored up, berley in the water, and sitting on those fish that you've sounded by the time the sun's just coming up.
Yeah.
But where I think live baiting would really change the game, it's for that sort of 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. bite window, which is typically pretty tough. Those sort of middle of the day tide changes. If you've got time to go and catch a couple of little lollipop calamari or some gars come up in the burley trail or yakkers or slimies during certain parts of the season, this could change it, because the bay's the healthiest it's ever been. There's pillies swimming around Port Phillip Bay everywhere. There's yakkers everywhere. There's slimies everywhere. And it's been a little bit of a common talking point through the last few years that have been a little bit tougher on the snapper, that why would they eat a frozen pilchard or silver whiting when they can just gorge themselves, swim around with their mouths open and eat as many live pillies and bait fish as they can stomach? Well, why don't we just take the live bait to them?
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Mate, I love it. I love your enthusiasm, Mads, because it's something I'm pretty passionate about too. And look, I'd certainly have done it in the Bay, in Port Phillip Bay, and with amazing results, if I don't say so myself. And when I say that, I mean quite surprising. Not surprising in theory, but surprised at the intensity of a snapper hitting a live bait. And we often speak about things like that, like the difference in how they hit a soft plastic, for example, that's sinking with a nice action to it. It's a lot more aggressive than when they hit a dead bait, like a frozen pilchard or silver whiting. When a snapper that I've caught on live squid hits, it doesn't feel like a snapper. It feels like something a lot bigger and a lot nastier, but that's just the way they go about it. That is just one reason that I love everything about it. The other is just how effective it is. And like you said before, it's not that hard to collect some live baits. Now, I think going to the question, why don't we use live baits more? I think it's extra work is one of the answers that I'd say, and people don't want to have to put in that extra work. They know that they should be able to get a bite or two on a pilchard or a silver whiting. Sometimes we as anglers, get a little bit scared of change. So, people have been catching snapper on pilchards for how many years, So why would you change? It's a mindset that that I wish would change more across all of fishing, just trying new things. And there's lots and lots of anglers that do that, and they try new things and they get zero fish often. But when they do get a fish, it's amazing. This instance, what we're talking about here, live baiting for snapper, it's not going to fail you all that often. If you can manage yourself a half a dozen nice size bait, and look, when I say nice size bait squid, it doesn't matter what size they are. I've put down live squid that I think are too big, and they get eaten. There's no doubt about that. But again, I think it's the extra work and maybe the fear of going to that extra effort and extra work and not catching one, and then you'd have that thing circulating in your head going, well, I should have just got some fucking pilchards. I told you. So there's a bit of that. But, man, I'm with you 100%. And look, there's no doubt people do it.
For sure.
So we're not saying it's never been done, but Christ, if more people had a bit of a crack, I'd love to hear people's excitement as we get excited about it as well, because it's just another style of fishing for an iconic species that we've got here, readily available. And man, I tell you what, sinking down a live bait once you've schooled a fish or two, there's some anticipation there that you don't necessarily feel by throwing over a dead bait.
Yeah, that's right. And I think you're spot on with the habit thing. I mean, pilchards and silver whiting, or squid rings in Western Port, or squid heads in both Port Phillip and Western Port, they've got runs on the board.
Yeah.
It's so hard. It is so hard to change up something that's worked so often and so consistently for as long as I can ever remember. I don't know. I think this could be something that changes it when the bite's tough.
Yeah.
So whether it be this early season that we're in now, whether it be in the heart of the season when the fish sit deep and the water temperature gets quite warm, I don't know. I just think if you sit out that morning tide, which we all would prefer to fish for snapper, nothing happens. Rather than pack it up and sort of, don't worry, cruise into the shallows,
Yep.
get a squid drift going, a nice fine burley trail out the back while you're squid fishing, because all your bait fish is going to be in that area the squid are anyway.
Yep.
Just why not?
Why not? And
Why
that's
not?
right.
What do you got to lose?
You got nothing to lose. You're about to pack it in and go home anyway. Why not have a crack? And gee, I reckon it's a good point. I reckon it could save the day a few times too. And the thing is too, and if we're talking about Port Phillip Bay, wherever you're sort of typically snapper fishing, you're not a far run in your boat not far at all, to some nice shallow grounds where there should be squid. So, if you just think about the bay, looking at it from a map point of view, you're going to be near enough to some. You don't have to travel far, basically, is what I'm saying, to collect some bait potentially. So, yeah.
Well, if you're snapper fishing on a reef in 14 metres, either drop shot a squid jig down there, or you can buy extra weights that slip over the nose of your squid jigs and vertical jig them.
Yep. Yeah.
They will be there.
Yep.
Whether they're there all the time, I guess it's no different to a squid sitting in 4 metres of water.
Yep.
Sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not. But the squid will sit in that deeper water out in the bay, especially if you're snapper fishing on a little bit of reef.
Yep.
Or a little bit of structure. Those squid will be there.
Love it. So why don't we use live baits more for snapper? I'm thinking it's effort, ads.
Old habits die hard.
Should we be talking more about berley?
Should we be talking more about berley? Well, firstly, how do you spell it? This is a thing that's bothered me for a long time. I know this isn't what this topic's about, but I have to bring it up.
Question.
I have to bring it up. This is not where we're going with this topic, but how are we spelling it? And the reason I always laugh at this is because we've had suppliers that supply bait and burley over the years, and they spell it differently. So I don't know. Are we doing it?
That's right.
B-E-R or B-U-R? And look, I'm not putting you on the spot, ads. I'm actually going to throw to our friends on Instagram, because how are we spelling it? B-U-R?
How do you spell it?
L-E-Y or B-E-R-L-E-Y? I don't know. Maybe there's a silent J in there somewhere. Fucking, I don't know. Anyway, that's it.
I got nothing.
But, I mean, burley across the board. Look, anything that helps the end game, which is catching a fish, right? As long as it's legal and everything's above board, it's worth talking about, for sure. Do you sort of get the feeling that sometimes, and not always, but sometimes using burley almost has a slight negative connotation on it for some reason? Like there's almost like a weird thing about it? I don't know. What like do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do, and I don't really know because I'm sort of the belief if you're doing any sort of bait fishing at all, I think burley you have to. You have to. And probably the biggest argument against it would be this would be said about Western Port for as long as I can remember ever talking about Western Port. They don't burley because they don't want to attract shit fish.
Yeah.
Rays, skates.
Yeah.
You know, if you're gummy fishing and you're sitting in the middle of a channel fishing for a big gummy and you pop some burley on the bottom and all of a sudden there's just eagle ray after bull ray after shovel nose after banjo.
Yep. That's no fun.
I get that. But if you're say you're just the average weekender fisher.
Yep.
Surely you want to maximize your catching potential.
That's what
which means burley.
That's what I'm saying with like anything helping that end game. You have to be talking about it because you might, like you said, you might only be fishing once a month or less, and you want to do everything in your power. What I'd like to know, Ads, to throw to you, should we be talking about burley more with lure fishing? Ooh, this is a funny one, and it makes probably a lot of lure anglers out there cringe a little bit and go, "What are you talking about?" But why not? Why not? I mean, it's kind of. I know it's a tricky one because you're not often anchored and you're quite often moving around a lot, and so it sort of defeats the purpose a little bit. Let's take snapper fishing, right? You're bait fishing for snapper. You're pumping burley. You always are. You're throwing handfuls out. You're doing whatever. But what if you go out there just purely to drift around, chucking plastics, chucking jigs down, doing whatever? Why wouldn't you do the same thing with the burley, apart from the fact that you are moving around a little bit?
And I think that's probably the answer, to be honest. It's going to be hard to pinpoint exactly where you've dropped that burley. If there was a more efficient way of doing it, it would work for sure. If
you're fishing a reef or a bommy offshore, even if it's kingfish or snapper or whatever it is, and you're, GPSs these days, you can just keep going back to that same mark, which is the bommy or the reef. What if you're just getting to that mark and pumping out some burley, and then you start chucking the plastics or the lures around, and then every time you drift back there, you just chuck another heap over. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know.
Yeah, I do get what you're saying. I just don't know if it makes all that much sense to me. And that just could be my little pea brain not putting two and two together. Because it's a hard one. It can be so hard to dial in a drift, or even with the use of technology, say you've done one drift and you get a few fish, you always circle around and do a secondary drift.
Yeah.
But it's so hard to hit the same line. I don't know. It's a great question because I'm sure there would be some merit to it, especially in that bay sort of environment where, like, it's different if you're up in estuary snag fishing. You're essentially just snag hopping. The snag is essentially your burley.
True.
Whereas, and I know a reef kind of acts as the same thing, but it's a lot more vast. It's a lot bigger.
Yeah.
A reef can be a huge area.
Yeah, no, totally.
But what about scent? So what about like whether it's a scent spray or whether it's a gel type scent? If you're lure fishing and you put on a scent, could it be classed as burley?
Not bad. Or I suppose it's an additive to your lure. It is essentially doing the job of burley in principle, isn't it? Because it's leaving an attractant in the water. It's leaving a trail, leaving a scent in the water. Definitely.
Again, burley, essentially, it comes down to giving you every opportunity and every advantage to attracting fish to your area to catch them. So
in reference to this question, should we be talking more about burley? Do you think it's not getting enough credit?
I wouldn't say it's not getting enough credit. I just think for a lot of anglers, it's still an afterthought. The ones that do it well have done it forever and will never go fishing without burley.
Yeah.
So I guess it's probably aimed more at the beginner fishers or those that are just wondering why it's not happening. If you're not burling, do it.
Yeah, get amongst it. We should be talking about it more. And if you're not dealing with it, deal with it. Get in it.
Have a crack.
Have a crack.
Who is in your fishing presenter Mount Rushmore?
The Mount Rushmore of fishing presenters.
This is so tough, man.
Oh my God. I want to preface this by saying I know I'm going to leave out someone that's bleedingly obvious.
Yeah.
But anyway, here we go. I want to give a couple of honourable mentions before we start that didn't make my final four.
One of four.
for
So Mount Rushmore. There's 4 presidents, ex-presidents.
4, yep.
Yep. Okay.
So, honourable mentions. I think there's a few YouTubers that are doing an unbelievable job.
Yeah.
And they're up and comers, and they're the future of it. They're not quite there yet because they're only sort of just finding their feet, but they have they got potential to get there in the end. I'd absolutely love what Nev's doing with his YouTube fishing channel. I think he's just doing a great job. It's local content. It's getting new fishers and young fishers involved. It's the same with Alan Bonici. I think he's doing an incredible job in the YouTube space as well. And the young fellas from Big Dog Fishing Adventures. They're just living their dream via YouTube, and I think it is so important for our industry. And they're only going to grow and continue to get better. So there are the YouTuber side of things, which is going to be a completely different question years down the track, I think.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to give a quick shout out to the YouTubers because they're doing an incredible job.
Yeah,
and
nice.
that is the future of what we're talking about, I think.
Yep.
Another honourable mention to Robson Green.
Yeah. Are we just going to name everyone and say...
No. I'm going to get to the final 4, I promise. But these guys are important because Robson made not really knowing what you're doing cool and funny.
Yeah. Yep.
So, honourable mention.
Yeah, good one. Good.
And I really wanted to get this guy into Mount Rushmore, but Lee Rayner, honourable mention.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of you, mate. You made people look at fishing in a technical manner.
Yep.
And that's important. And I think it's very valuable, but didn't quite make it to Mount Rushmore. So, my Mount Rushmore,
Righto,
obviously Rex Hunt.
Yep.
Obviously Rex Hunt. I've never, ever seen a man, met a man, whether it be on TV, whether it be seeing him present to kids or seeing him to present at a boat show or a big event. When he talks, you listen.
Yep.
You just can't help it.
Yep.
A guy with that much knowledge, he put recreational fishing on the map. He is the GOAT as far as I'm concerned.
Yep.
I grew up as a kid like convincing myself that the show on before his was actually good.
Yeah.
Just because I needed to pass that time quickly for his show to come on.
Yeah.
So Rex Hunt's definitely on
There's
there.
young people listening now saying, what do you mean you have to wait for a show?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So Rex is definitely on there. Another one on there for me is Steve Starling. He is just a fishing nut.
Yeah.
He's a dude that would know all the scientific names to everything, was insanely up to date with techniques and gear and lures, paid minute attention to environments he was fishing, and has now reinvented himself as a YouTube presenter as well, which I think it's quite valuable because it gives the younger generation a chance to see what this guy was all about. I think he's incredible as well.
Yeah.
Number 3, I'm going to say Matt Watson.
Oh, I love it. Well done. Yep.
And the reason I've got him in there is because the amount of excitement he generates through a television screen is ridiculous.
Yep.
He could take the most boring fishing trip ever and make it look like it was something that you had to be a part of.
Yep.
And I think that's watching his stuff over the years has been insane. Like jumping out of helicopters onto marlin, just crazy stuff. Crazy stuff.
Yeah. Yep. No,
So-
great call. Yep.
He's on there.
Yep.
And last but definitely not least, I've got Paul Worsling in my Mount Rushmore.
Yep.
And I know that I worked for him for a very long time. I think he made fishing the ultimate family adventure.
Yeah.
So through iFish in recent times, everything about what he does is entertaining. It's aimed at families. Take it for what it is, and he is clearly on the Mount Rushmore of fishing presenters, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well done. This is tough, man. And
it is really tough.
And there is an element of this that, like, we both have been in this game for a long time in tackle industry and also media stuff too. So we know a lot of these guys really personally and really well. So it's we probably want to favour some of our favourites or whatever it is. But let's be honest, we're just doing this for we're just putting up our Mount Rushmore. And
we're
by the way,
throwing it out there.
1 to 4, no particular order. I'm sure you're the same.
Yeah, no order.
Yeah.
Just
all right. Well, let me start mine with some honourable mentions as well, because I think that's fair. And you mentioned YouTubers, so that's good. But I've got a couple here that are they're not necessarily close to the Mount Rushmore directly, but the reason being they're not specifically fishing presenters. However, a lot of what they do involves fishing, and what they present does involve fishing. It's part of what they do. One is Malcolm Douglas. Part of what he did. So his was the whole travel, outdoor, forward drive, camping, fishing piece. So
good one.
Not specific fishing presenter, but like he's in my top couple of presenters of all time. Like, I love everything that he did. And like you, I would camp out to watch his show come on at a specific time, whatever it was. The other one, which is a more current, similar vein, adventure, plenty of fishing in it, but it's not specifically what he does, is Brody Moss from Young Bloods. Awesome. Like, and what Brody does is just has so much energy and excitement that you can't help be sort of uplifted by watching him. Secondly, the stuff he shoots is incredible. Like, and don't get me wrong, he lives in an amazing part of the world where the water's always crystal clear and blue and stunning, and there's all sorts of animals. But he does it with real passion. So his drone footage, his underwater stuff, he gets in there. He's very, very proud of his area and the animal species that are around him, and takes a lot of care. So I think that's great. But they don't sort of sit in there just because they're a bit of a fishing's part of what they do, but not specifically. So then I've got a couple more before I dive into my 4. And I can't believe how hard this was. Like, this was...
It's really hard.
Yeah.
It is really hard because there's so many... There's so many out there that have done such an amazing job for fishing.
Okay, so first honourable mention is Steve Starling. Like, Starlo's... I mean, you could argue he should be in the top 4. I mean, you could argue all these people should be in the Mount Rushmore. But I'm going Starlo. For obvious reasons. You've mentioned most of them. Great presenter, speaks so well, presents so well, and is full of knowledge. I had to throw Bushy in because he was part of that amazing, game-changing scene that, you know, he wasn't as necessarily clearly or well-spoken as the other guys or loud and flamboyant, but same deal, man. Like, if he started talking about something, you just didn't stop listening. You know,
because he just knew his shit.
Yeah,
he just knew it.
Yeah. So Matt Watson was thereabouts for me too. I think what Matt and look, probably the only reason he's not in the top 4 is because I've made mine all Australian. But Matt, not only does he do cool stuff, he's actually pioneered a lot of shooting techniques. So what he's done as far as shooting, getting footage, and places he's gone. Efforts he's gone to get some of the shots, I think is second to none. Like, as far as our industry, like, he's done some cool stuff, which has no doubt inspired others to go and do similar things. So, Matty's up there as well. So, am I into my 4 now? I think I'm into my 4.
I'm excited for this, Luke.
All right, I'm into my 4 ads. This has been so full on. Number 1, without even thinking about it, and this is probably number 1, is Rex. Like, you said it. You said enough. I don't have to go on too much, but you can't have any sort of list in this space where he's not number 1. And you know, but very similarly to that, and you know, this might be controversial. I'm not sure, but I think very clearly next in line by a long way is Paul Worsling. I think his longevity, his presenting skills, his ability to, like you say, has turned fishing into a family excitable thing. You know, yes, we saw it firsthand for many, many years of the impact he had on kids and families coming into his store after watching episodes going, I want a part of this. You know, that's impactful, you know. That's
Yeah, that's right. And not too many presenters are able to attract an audience that don't necessarily like or know anything about fishing.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. He made a fishing program, family entertainment.
Yeah. And he's owned that space for a long time. And when I say owned it, like I don't, you know, not exclusively, there's plenty of people in it, as we've spoken about, but he hasn't dropped the ball in over 20 years. So I think easily, very, very easily in that top four. Another one in my top four is Lee Rayner. I think I've put him in there for a number of reasons. One is, again, longevity. Like, he's just done it forever, since he was a kid, quite literally. And again, bringing a different sort of element to it. And as you touched on, technique, but it's not just technique with the fancy, fashionable fish. It's technique with bread and butter species that have made you sort of go, yeah, well, okay, well, I'll try that because that's just at my doorstep. And lo and behold, what he's showing and teaching is absolutely spot on and accurate. And I think he's the best in the business at the technical side of fishing presenting.
Yep, great call.
Okay, and to round it out, and look, these guys are very, very close friends of mine. I love them dearly, but I don't think I'm being overly biased. Andrew Hart and Nick Dygan from Hook, Line and Sinker, I think, are two of the best presenters in the business. And look,
great one.
It's personal preference too. I love their style. I love what they've done on television. I love the unique angle they've gone with it. It's not... I think they're very open about the fact that they're not experts in any of these fields. They have a bit of fun with it. They go to great places. They do a lot of great boating content, which is a bit different too. They're sort of the only ones that really are diehard in that space. But the fact of the matter is, these guys have done it for over 20 years. Now, whether you love them or not, you've got to respect that. There's not many who can hang around that long. And I think the ones that we've spoken about in our Mount Rushmores are certainly players in that longevity space. And that deserves respect, because we know it's a tough industry. We know all facets of media can be really tough in any industry. But there's lots that come and go. If you can be around for over 20 years, you're obviously doing something right. So Andrew and Nick, Hook, Line and Sinker, round out my Mount Rushmore. That kind of technically is 5. So Nick and Andrew can fight it out over who's going to be carved out in stone. But that's it. That's it for me.
Yep. I like it. No one that's been mentioned is offensive at all and could have easily been in the final 4.
No.
This is... We got to hear from people on this one.
Oh.
Like I said, there's some amazing presenters out there, and there's some amazing up-and-comers too.
I reckon we'll find ourselves in the near future ads doing an episode, a topic on modern-day presenters and YouTube and Instagram is kind of where they're at. But, mate, you're spot on. Everyone's got their own thoughts on this, and we'd love to hear about it. So definitely hit us up. Find the tile on the Deep Drop Instagram account. That is who is your fishing presenter, Mount Rushmore, and let us know. Just let us know and why you think that they're up there. And I love it. I love it all. And there's certainly no one that will can out, because there's some that I haven't mentioned and you haven't mentioned that are in my mind right now, and I'm just I could have slotted them in. So heaps of them. But mate, that's a great way to end, because I'm buzzing now.
It is a great way to end.
I'm going to jump on YouTube and watch some fishing content.
That's right. Yeah, start YouTubing.
Mate, that's
what, even bust out the old DVD player?
Oh, hang on, what? What's that? Oh, mate, that's so good. That's a wrap. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And like we've said all along, we want you to be a part of this journey. Instagram's the best place to do it. If you can jump on there, give us your thoughts, share the love. We'd appreciate it. And don't forget, stick around, subscribe to this podcast wherever you want to do it. It's free, and you get notified whenever a new episode gets rolled out. And a big thank you to Taylor Hunt, who is a fisheries manager at the Victorian Fisheries Authority, for reading out our questions tonight. Very much appreciated. Thanks, Taylor. Ads, I reckon that's just about us for tonight.
Yep, that's it. Jump on, subscribe, and get involved. You're as much a part of this show as what we are, Luke, and we have some outrageous fun putting this thing together. So we'd love to hear everyone's feedback and their answers to some of fishing's biggest questions.